something's a little bit different this time. Uncle Roddus here again. It's Record Store Day 2018. I'm a bit ambivalent about Record Store Day in that the specific releases that are released for Record Store Day don't particularly interest me at all. Most of them are way too expensive. I mean, they pretty much started at $60 each in the shops today. I did have a look through the bin just to see if there was anything, and there was some interesting New Zealand ones. There was a Sneaky Feelings reissue. I know that it came out earlier in the year in a special edition, and this was the more general release. It was still $60 for a live recording. And then there was another release of an album that had never been released on vinyl. That was pretty much it as far as New Zealand went. I think there was another one, a hardcore metal band up in Wellington. I don't think any copies have made it down here that I saw. Anyway, Penny Lane, my usual shop, has their, for Record Store Day, has a 50% sale on everything in shop except for the Record Store Day releases. So anything new, second hand, DVDs, CDs, the works, everything. Pretty much that's a media type item of that sort. So it's a great time to pick up some pretty cool stuff. So I've got a lot to get through and I'm going to have to move pretty fast. I have a limited amount of time on this camera. First thing I picked up this morning was this a German super rock compilation of things like Nu, Jane, Guru Guru, Grobschnitt, Cluster, etc. This is actually a compilation put out on a budget label in New Zealand called Music World. Music World was run from the late 60s to the mid 80s, I think, maybe a bit later, and they put out a lot of crappy stuff like brass bands and granddad music and I don't know, country music, but the really horrible sort of country music. And they used to put out some rather interesting weird stuff as well, and they used to do a lot of punk compilations because the guy who owned it, his son was into the British hardcore punk in the early 80s, like myself, and there was a lot of like the Punk and Disorderly compilations were released. Orchestre Rail Band di Bamako. This is a band from Mali in 1970. This is reissued out of the States on Mississippi Records in 2011. Brand new, out of the brand new bin, so I picked it up for like about $10. Sort of like reminded me a bit of high life, Nigerian high life music at the start. Not particularly Afro funk, but yeah, Afro pop. Nice little record. In the new bins, there was not a lot of stuff New Zealand wise for me this trip. I did put a couple back that were already reduced, and then I would have got them even cheaper, but I was just running out of funds and there were a lot more other things that I was interested in. But I did pick up Neil Young's latest release with the Promise of the Real. This is a 3-sided LP, and I got it for half price, like everything. So yeah, couldn't leave that in the bin. I'm a bit behind on some of Neil's recent releases, so glad to have that one. I did get Hitchhiker for Christmas. This was a brand new sealed reissue. This is my favourite album of theirs. I don't have anything of theirs at the moment, but this has my 2 all-time favourite songs of theirs, and probably 2 of my all-time favourite songs as far as any sort of heavy rock metal is concerned. Ace of Spades and Lovely Like a Reptile. So I'm really rapt to have that. Then getting into the second-hand stuff, they had a lot of bins there that they bring out now and again. They had been out in the past and they brought them back out again, which they have a lot of fairly commercial music and several copies of them, and a lot of them are second hand, but they look a little bit shabby. They're not as good a condition as normal. Some of them still have reasonably good prices on them, up to $30 to $40 depending on who the band is. This is McCartney 2, and I really like the Temporary Secretary. I'm pretty cool. I like Coming Up, was pretty cool. I remember that when I was a teenager. That was all over the charts and radios. Waterfalls is a lovely song. My wife really likes that, so we grabbed that. Now I picked up a few today that I probably wouldn't have normally picked up because I had them on CD, but I picked up a copy of this because this is one of my all-time favourite records, and I used to have it on vinyl and I thrashed it to the death, and then it disappeared along with the rest. It went with the rest of my collection many years ago, so I picked that up again. Original New Zealand issue in really good nick. Picked this one up. I didn't check this out enough because I was in a bit of a hurry, and you know it was a big day and the shop was packed and I had a big armful of records, but I did pick this one out fairly early, the Revelos, and I was thinking of the Rezelos. It's actually the same band, I think maybe slightly later and different people, but interesting record. A bit of Van Morrison. This album here has a fairly good reputation, and so I decided to pick it up. There were a few other Van Morrison ones there, but this is one of the earlier ones that was there, and so it's a bit dirty. I need to give it a good clean up. It's probably the dirtiest one of the day. Our friend Steve Hillage out of Gong, this was his first album. I'm not really familiar with any of his stuff, but this record had been flashed around on several pages and people and videos, and so I thought I'd give it a go. So looking forward to having a listen to that. Again, another one I actually have on CD, and I used to have on vinyl, but I decided I wouldn't mind getting them all back on vinyl again. I had pretty much everything Pink Floyd did up to the Wall on CD, but I've been picking them up on vinyl, and we have a few copies here that my wife had. Anyway, this is a New Zealand press original, and it's very clean, sounds really good, and it had $40 on it. I got it for $20, and that is much cheaper than the new reissues, which are selling for well over $50 around. So I haven't picked up. I picked up one of the new reissues because I got it for $30. Eloy. I can't quite read what the title of this is because it's written in funny writing. This is from 1984, so it's sort of quite a long way into their career. So I really don't know what this is going to be like. I mean, I'm sort of familiar with them in a small way. So I love the cover and took a gamble on that one. This is another one I had in my youth, and I'm quite pleased to have another copy. Zombie Birdhouse, Iggy Pop's 1982 record. Someone quoted a lyric off it when I posted it on the Valon's Facebook page today, and because I was going, did I used to have this album and I didn't recognise the song titles, but when he quoted the lyrics I did remember, yes, I did have a copy of that, and always had really enjoyed it. Pleased to pick up a copy of Head, Hands and Feet's second album, Tracks, from 1972. This is a really good album. I've only listened to one side, but yeah, I'm really impressed, and I have their first record, so I'm pretty stoked to have that. Another one I had when I was a lot younger and haven't actually ever had a copy of it since, and this was the Big Audio Dynamite debut album. One of the guys, Mick Jones, that's it, Mick Jones from The Clash. Yeah, I loved this record when it came out, and I had it, bought it brand new pretty much as soon as it hit the shops back in 1985, something like that. Yeah, interesting to see how this is going to sound today. You know, I really liked it back then. I wonder if it's aged well. Funnily enough, Devo, first album I ever bought with my own money was Devo's Freedom of Choice LP, which I do have on CD at the moment. And then of course the other one, the first album I just showed before, was one of my all-time favourites. So, but in saying that, I never ever heard or owned this. I may know some of the songs off it, and I'll know when I get to listen to it, but I never owned this. But someone said that this was their favourite Devo album, and they had a big Devo collection, so bugger it, I thought I should finally pick it up. Another one that I actually already have on CD, but this is their best, I feel. This is Tarkus, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I think this is their second album from 1972. I have it on CD. I used to have it on vinyl. I actually played part of this today, and it's got a lot of noise in the background, but hopefully, I mean, the vinyl looks really good, and when the music's playing it disappears, but in the quieter bits it's got this horrible hissy sort of, you know, I'm hoping that putting it through the cleaner might actually clean it up. This is another one I have on CD, but I used to have it on vinyl, and I thought, shit, bugger it, let's get it. It cost me $10. The Nails, this is a really good good nick, and I really like this album. I do have their second on CD, but I wasn't overly impressed with it. But this 88 lines about 44 women is just an absolute classic. Late Night Sleaze. So the slim pickings in the New Zealand stuff today. I finally picked up the Chills' latest album from 2015. I mean, I knew it was here, and I've seen it around. It's actually been sitting in the shop for quite a while, so I got it half price. So I'm really pleased to have that. Put the sticker on that. Anyway. So yeah, the Chills are a legendary New Zealand band, and they still are going. So looking forward to hearing that. And this one here, I was surprised to see this, and if I ever see it, this band's an interesting band. They're quite hard to listen to. Their music's very lo-fi. They're a hugely famous New Zealand underground band, big influence on people like Sonic Youth. Noisy, drony, experimental, certainly non-musical in some ways. This is a reissue of an album and an EP put out on Jaguar and Bada Bing in 2010. But yeah, basically I'm still not sure how much I like these guys. I'd love to see them live. I'd love to get the feel of them live, but they play live so rare. But they have a massive discography. So I got to the jazz bins. There wasn't a lot in the new releases bins really, and there was not much in the new arrivals bins really. I was only an hour late after the shop had opened, and it was sort of half full. And by the time I left, it was chocker. The place was absolutely. I've never seen it so full. So they're doing pretty well. But so obviously some stuff had gone, but I think a lot of stuff got taken out of the shelves before the sale. That stuff that they weren't really willing to let go at half price, which is fair enough. I mean, you know, Roland Kirk, not familiar with his music, but kind of by reputation a little bit. So this is actually a reissue from Not Sure, recent times. There's no information about the fact that it's a reissue. It's got all the numbers of the original, although if I looked at the Matrix it might help. But on Discogs there's sort of like a couple of versions of this, but the year of release is unknown. Anyway, so looking forward to trying that out. And then I also found of his this one here, which I'd probably, if I'd looked at it a bit closer, I might not have put in my pack. It's actually a whole bunch of cover versions of things like Ain't No Sunshine and What's Going On by Marvin Gaye's, another Marvin Gaye song. So not sure how this is going to pan out. From the 1972, I think it was. Again, a reissue of recent times. And finally, I picked up a bunch of ECMs, as I do, and so it was nice to fill a few gaps in my ECM collection with some normally, you know, $10, $15 records, which I'm normally paying, of course, twice that. So we start off here with David Darling, an album called Cycles, ECM 1219 from 1982. Wasn't familiar with him at all. John Abercrombie Characters, ECM 1117 from 1978. 78, yeah. Just him alone on electric guitar and mandolin. Mandolin, yeah. So that's a solo record. Chick Corea and Steve Kujala, ECM 1282 from 1985. I'm just going to take it out of the bag. These are all in beautiful condition. I haven't cleaned them yet. That's possibly going to be something I might start doing tonight. Edward Visala Satu. This is ECM 1088. This is the earliest one I picked up today from 1976 and 77. 76. Yeah, looking good. Looks interesting. Quite a big lineup of musicians on here, but not many of them names that I know. Enrico Rava Quartet. This is, actually doesn't have a name. Just, yep, self-titled by the looks of it. ECM 1122 from 1978. Steve Kahn, or Coons. What's this one called? Non-Friction. 1124 from 1978 also. This is a quartet of Steve on piano, percussion, Steve Slagiel, soprano and alto saxophones, flute and percussions, Harvey Swartz on bass and Bob Moses on drums. Apart from Steve, I don't actually know, or Steve Kuhn, I don't actually know any of the other names. And finally, the last of the ECMs and the last of the 29 records that I bought today for less than $400. Jan Garbarek is ECM 1381 from 1988. This is probably the latest piece of vinyl I have from ECM. So there you have it. That's Record Store Day 2018, and that is probably one of the biggest hauls I've bought out of a record shop in many a year. So that's pretty cool. Pretty good going. Wish I had more money. I'd go back and buy more, but never mind. All right, and sorry, I have missed one. Playing in the background is Dave Holland Emerald Tears ECM 1109 from 1977, and it's just him along on the bass. I really like Dave Holland. It's interesting that I've got another record of him just playing, I think it's later than this one, just playing on his own with his bass, and you know, it's quite surprising how interesting he can make a record with just him on a bass. But I think he's fantastic. I have a few other of his records as quartets and sextets that he's done over the years, and yeah, he's a fantastic guy, musician. Right, that's me. See you next time.